Welcome to the Sports Phenom Show for another week of your MLS action. We have another three best bets for you to take advantage of. I'm on a current 7-2 run over my last 3 weeks of action on my last 9 plays. Last week actually went 1-2 after going 6-0 the 2 previous weeks. A costly penalty in the Toronto FC game, which, by the way, was an absolute disgraceful call. They never even went to replay. I don't even know what the point of these video replays are if you're not even going to use it. The call was so brutal. It's absolutely shocking. It's like sometimes they just don't even want to embarrass the referee with taking it to video because it was so blatantly a bad call. I just can't think of any other reason why they don't go to video replay when the coverage is showing you the replay and you see it yourself how blatantly bad the call was. That's just the extent of how brutal that penalty call was for TFC. Otherwise, we probably would have ended up cashing that in with a push and going 2-1 again on the week for another winning week and ended up 8-1 over our last 9. But that's okay. You know that I rebound every single week. I finished off the NFL season with no consecutive losing weeks. Can you believe that? Hit almost 64% of every single play and every single game in the NFL season right here on the YouTube podcast. And I've continued that trend right here into the MLS and never had more than 2 straight losing weeks. Sorry, more than 1. Never had 2. Only had 2 losing weeks thus far out of 10 weeks this year. That's how good it's been and how it'll continue to be all season long. So we currently stand at a record of 18-10 on the season. This isn't even my sport I would consider my forte, like the NFL and maybe also the NHL. But hey, I get the job done, and that's the bottom line because I am the number 1 handicapper in the world, the number 1 sports professional gambler, and you are getting this information absolutely free. And for those of you bigger players, you're taking it a step further. You're getting out and taking advantage of all of my membership plays. You're reaching out. You're saying, hey, Phenom, you're the real deal, man. I've never found anybody like you. What's it going to take for me to get on board and start making some more serious money? And for those of you, an extra big congrats because you're kicking some serious ass. I have not had a losing month for all of my membership plays. I continue to get the job done, almost at 100 units on a 1 to 5 unit scale already here in 2025. For those of you looking to take your gambling endeavors to the next level, start making some serious money, you can always reach out to me at sportsgamblingphenom@gmail.com. Reach out, take advantage, and start treating your gambling like a sports investment business opportunity, as you should. That's the right way to get things done. And I'll continue to prove it one way or another, with or without you here on these YouTube podcasts. Take advantage, build up your cash. Maybe you don't have enough right now to take advantage of taking that next step, but you can keep building with these free picks. So let's get right to this week's action. First game I like this week is going to be between Atlanta United and Nashville SC. Now, the pick in this game might surprise you because I'm going to go with the team that's on a little bit of a losing streak right now, a little bit of a downswing, sitting 12th in the Eastern Conference on Atlanta United. They've lost 3 straight games in a row. Badly got beat last week on the road, 3-0 in Orlando. They also lost the previous week, 3-0 in Philadelphia. And the week prior to that, to the current red-hot New England Revolution, who they are currently sitting a couple places back in the Eastern Conference. They sit in 12th. Atlanta, while New England is in 10th. So a win here today will get them that much closer to 10th, the top 10, and back into a playoff position. Now, why am I on a team that's lost 3 straight and hasn't even scored a goal in those 3 games? Well, you could call it a hunch. Sometimes my plays are based on just strictly a hunch, and this will be one of those. Not often. Usually there's so much more to why I make my picks, and I explain that to you pretty much here every week. And for my members, I'll even give more detail if they want it. But in this game, it is strictly a hunch. This team is strictly too good to not be able to get back in the win column. They are a team that's destined to make the playoffs and had high hopes before the season started. And I just think they've run into some teams who are starting to heat up. Orlando, who they lost last week 3-0 to, hasn't lost in 5 straight games, sitting in 7th in the Eastern Conference. Before that, I mentioned they lost to Philadelphia, who currently sit 3rd in the Eastern Conference. They're also on a nice run, unbeaten in 3 of their last 4. They're even ahead of Inter Miami in the Eastern Conference. That's how strong their season has been. And the week prior to that, as mentioned, they lost 1-0 to New England. And New England has won 3 in a row. So they've just, in my opinion, hit a part of their schedule where they're catching teams that are just firing in all cylinders right now. And one team that isn't as much is Nashville. And even though Nashville came off a huge, absolutely huge 7-2 rout of Chicago last weekend, Chicago hasn't even won a game in like 5 or 6 games, so that doesn't impress me that much. And they lost 3 of their last 4 before that. Yet they had a good start to the season. That's why they sit in 6th. So this is a good chance now for Atlanta to get back at home in front of their big crowd on an artificial turf, where Nashville doesn't have the best of track records, play against a decent team that hasn't been firing on all those high cylinders right now as the rest of these teams that they've been playing as of late. So again, just a huncher, but I do think that this is a very good spot for Atlanta to get back in the win column. We're going to cover ourselves here by taking Atlanta on the pick line. If they do draw in this game, we'll push. No harm, no foul. But I really do believe they're going to be able to pull this one out. So let's take Atlanta United over Nashville as your first of 3 MLS selections for this weekend. Next game, we're going to take a look at the Inter Miami game. They're at home playing the New York Red Bulls, and talk about a shocking result that Inter Miami had earlier this week in the second leg of their Champions Cup semifinal against the absolutely red-hot Vancouver Whitecaps. Wow. Not only did they lose the first leg in Vancouver the week prior 2-0, they ended up losing the second leg at home in Miami 3-1, losing the 2-game combined aggregate 5-1. That is the shocker of the season thus far, to say the least. And that puts Miami now at 3 straight games in all competitions without a win. And that is another shock on top. Of course, 2 of those were against Vancouver. They lost also another game in the mix in the regular season here, playing against FC Dallas. Now, they didn't have all their best players on the field for that one, but still, they're not going to take this lightly. The coach is not going to take this lightly. Messi surely isn't going to take this lightly. And I absolutely love Inter Miami to rebound. Word has it, they're not going to be resting those players because now they're out of the Champions League. So expect Messi, Busquets, Alba, Suarez, and the ex-Barcelona boys to be back on the field. And this is going to be what I expect to be a prideful game on that behalf. Everybody expects a big performance here from Inter Miami, and so do I. You've seen the line now climb, especially over the last couple of days, and I need you to get on that, therefore, immediately before it goes up any higher. New York Red Bulls, who they're catching here, are in 8th, just a few spots behind Inter Miami. And they've had an up and down season, winning one, losing one, drawing one. And that's exactly the case over the last few weeks. They did beat a CF Montreal team that hasn't even won yet this season. So no big deal there. And it was only 1-0 last week at home. Then they ended up losing at home to DC United. They did have a draw before that, a 0-0 in Orlando, and won the game before that. So technically, you could say they're also unbeaten or only had one loss in their last 4. So not too bad, but they haven't impressed me overall, to be honest with you. They haven't really played the top echelon teams in the league. And now on the road, especially here in Miami, in this spot with Inter Miami, looking to rebound, get back in the win column, start concentrating on the regular season. They're going to be looking for a huge win in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if they get the job done by at least 2 or 3 goals. So Inter Miami, the clear play best bet of the weekend for me here. Inter Miami to get the job done. Your second of 3 MLS best bets for this weekend. Next game. Okay, and it's now down to my final best bet of the weekend, and it's going to be on the team that we were just talking about that took care of Inter Miami in that Champions Cup semifinal, and that's the Vancouver Whitecaps. Man, am I disappointed that I haven't been riding this team all season long, but there weren't too many out there, including myself, that expected this, not only see them first in the Western Conference, but it'd be in the final of the Champions Cup against Cruz Azul after that semifinal demolishing of Inter Miami. Are you kidding me? This has been an absolute incredible feat for this Vancouver Whitecap team, a team that had a lot of off-the-field distractions before the season started. Was the team about to be sold? Was the team about to be moved to another ownership? Maybe not even going to stay in Vancouver? You'd think that would cause friction upon the entire management and including the players, but that has been anything but the case. Vancouver is on absolute fire. They lead the entire league in points after 10 games with 7 wins, 2 draws, and only 1 loss. They had a big come-from-behind victory last week in Minnesota, down 1-0, ended up winning that game 3-1. And again, as I mentioned, I'm absolutely hitting myself on the head right now for not taking advantage of jumping on this team earlier, but I'm not going to waste any more time now, and I'm surely not going to be too late to the party here as I'm jumping on the bandwagon. Let's take advantage of this red-hot team who is at home and getting a decent line here. The line a little bit surprised me. I think Vegas thinks they might have a little bit of a letdown here after that big Inter Miami win, but I don't see it that way. This is a hungry young team that just seems to be firing in all cylinders and just looking to take care of business every single game in and game out, on the road, at home. Champions Cup, regular season, doesn't seem to matter. And now they're catching a real Salt Lake team who couldn't even beat the Toronto FC, who haven't even won or I think they won one game. Yes, Toronto FC beat them. They couldn't even beat Toronto FC, who were winless prior to that game just a couple weeks ago. So there's no way you're going to be able to convince me that laying 150 isn't the play here on this Vancouver line. Maybe, yes, a little bit of a letdown, but not enough to get me to not make a wager on this game on Vancouver. Real Salt Lake did rebound last week, but they won against expansion San Diego FC. So what does that mean? It means nothing. Again, they lost to Toronto FC, who were winless the week prior to that, 1-0. They also lost to Nashville before that. The other win they did have in the mix 4 weeks ago was against LA, another team who was winless and still is winless. And they lost 2-0 to Minnesota. So there's nothing here that tells me that Real Salt Lake has any chance in this game. Again, it might be a little bit of a letdown from Vancouver, but there's still that good of a team. It shouldn't matter. So I absolutely love this third and final selection on the Vancouver Whitecaps. Right now, the number one team in the MLS, and possibly, we'll see, they take care of AZ Cruel in the Champions Cup final. They could very well be one of the best teams, if not the best, in North America right now. My third and final selection, the Vancouver Whitecaps. Okay, folks, so now a quick rundown of your 3 MLS best bets for this weekend's action. First, Atlanta on the pick line. Then we're going to take Inter Miami to win. And finally, the Vancouver Whitecaps to win. I expect nothing less than a winning minimum 2-1 weekend. Wouldn't it be nice to sweep the board again for the third in the last 4 weeks? Third time in the last 4 weeks. Let's get it done. I am the Phenom, the only source you will ever need to make money and save money. Let's get this money. See ya.